Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome back to Champions Esports Series. We're here for round 6 this evening here at Silverstone after Tomas Enge picked up that race victory last time out in Austria. They look to extend their championship lead even further. Shazoo looking to fight back. Have Ventauri with their first podium of the season potentially brought themselves back into contention. Of course, still a long way to go in the season. My name is Max Ring. I'll be taking you through all of the action this evening. A short qualifying session which consists of 18 minutes for the battle for pole, and then closely followed by a 26-lap race around the historic Silverstone circuit here in Britain. It should be a very, very eventful race. Drivers just going to be getting ready in a second to get into qualifying, and the on-track action will start. But just before that, let's have a look at those standings after last week's race, where you can see Tomas Enge did extend that championship lead by quite some margin. It was 2 points heading into Austria. Coming out of Austria, they have a 15-point lead, over Shazoo Cedars Igniters. Ventauri, an extra 60 points back from Shazoo, but with that podium, as that started their strong turn of form, and could they potentially see themselves not only fight against Shazoo, but eventually, come the end of the season, have a little scrap with Tomas Enge Sim. Then we have Tartum, who are 133, so they're still very much in play. Same with FER Campeonato, who are on 5th on 118. Then we have RSC on 98, ETA on 85, Azuri Esports on 63, Onib on 45, and then International Racing Team, IRT, on 22 points. And as you can hear in the background, drivers are just heading on to the circuit. So we shall head trackside to bring you all of the action in this qualifying session, where everybody but Filip Nalowski will be competing so far due to, I think, AZR having a qualifying ban. Well, here we are, drivers now making their way onto the circuit. We've just seen one of the McLarens go by, but the first one around, I think, will be one of the RSC cars. It will be one of the RSC cars. It will not be Renz Tomassen. It will be of his teammate Tsubi. Tsubi be heading his way through Magazabek. As I say that, Renz Tomassen instantly re-overtakes him. And unfortunately for Tsubi, he won't be the first one around. It will be Renz Tomassen. So let's see what Renz can do for a benchmark here at Silverstone. Looking very overcast. Could this session be cut off ever so shortly due to some rain? We'll have to wait and see. But as Tomassen now hits the Vale chicane, about to start his first flying lap now. As we head down that Hamilton straight, Renz Tomassen for RSC, of course, who we mentioned sit 5th in those teams standings behind FER Campeonato. It's late on the brakes from Tomassen as we now make our way up into the loop, down to 3rd gear. Slowly bring that car back around. A little switch on the rear end, but it's nothing too major as he then gets through Aintree and opens up that DRS down the Wellington Straight and into Brooklyn's corner. First sector, 26.8. A little bit off where you would probably want to be in that first part of the lap, but of course the track is still very green and the track evolution will kick in come the end of the session. So now for Tomassen, as he makes his way through Woodcut and up the slight elevation into Copse Corner, it'll be down to 7th gear, get the car over the first apex, run the car out wide. It's flat out through there, and it's flat out through Maggots as well. It's flat through here. Just then you bring it down to 7th, then you have a slight dabble of the brakes through Beckett's and then through Chapel as well, down to 5th gear. Open up that DRS. It's a very nice middle sector from Tomassen. Seemed a lot better than what we saw from the first. And now as he makes his way into Stowe Corner, clip that inside apex curb, run the car out wide, but make sure you don't invalidate, which he doesn't, and then onto the brakes. Just is able to avoid the grass on the outside curb, and then runs the car from the exit. Easy to pendulum the car around, and for Tomassen, it's a 24-7. His teammate Tsubi elected to back out of that one and came into pit lane. Is that Basler to the line? It is. He goes second fastest for Tomas. Enge, of course, current championship leaders, and he is 2/10 shy. Alex goes into third fastest. Scott Holmes then displaces him closely, matching his teammate Kevin Taddle. Only can go fifth fastest. Hamza to seventh on a 25.5, so he's a little bit off the pace. Ben and the Leakies up into second. Vaso now to the top of the times on a 24.7, just pipping Rens to Masson, who is going to be next to the line. Ryan Grob is on a lap, but goes really deep into the Vale chicane. Fabi to 11th. What's this going to do for Ryan Grob? It's a 25.4. Yeah, certainly a lot of time in that final sector. Nuolfo goes up into 10th as Isaac Leet now goes to third. Danico, is he on a lap time? Yes, he is. He only goes 16th fastest. Alejandro Lerero to the line, and he goes fastest of all. A man that certainly has found some good form as of late in all the competitions he takes a part in. Of course, yesterday night took pole position in WR at Belgium, and here in CES, carrying on that strong form in qualifying. We finally evade that pole position curse, because whenever he started from pole, from what I've seen, not been able to convert it. Only the first runs of the session, still plenty of time for times to change. But Alejandro Lerero takes the early upper hand after the first runs of qualifying. Good session so far as well from Rens to Masson and RSC. Well, one of the cars in RSC. Toshubi not set a lap time just yet, so we can't really get a benchmark of how he's doing in this session. We don't know if that lap time was either invalidated or if it was just a bit to the high side. It just was a little bit scrappy for the RSC driver. And talking about him, he is out onto the circuit, so we'll go on board with Toshubi as he's starting his outlap. He's a little bit out of sync with everybody else, but he certainly has the opportunity to get all 3 runs that he'll want to do complete. It's actually 4 runs maybe. We do have a lobby restart, of course, after qualifying. So, as for Toshubi, making his way into that Vale chicane in the V car, but it's the base livery V car for Toshubi. Not running either of the special liveries as he now makes his way down the Hamilton straight and up into Abbey Corner. We switch back to the onboard shot as he now heads through the village, and it'll be late on the brakes into it's Fun Curb into Village and then up into the loop. This is where we saw Tomasson have a little slide from the rear end. It's not hurt him too much into Shupi. A little bit of a different line there. Took a much more narrower entry to potentially widen his exit. So as we now make our way through Brooklands, taking a bit too much of the entry curb. And that displaced the car a little bit as we head into the mid-corner. Luffield as well. That was quite nicely done through there, as he now makes his way up into Copse Corner. Of course, currently no lap time on the board for Toshubi, so lots of pressure on his shoulders. That inside apex curb was able to rotate the car a lot more than probably what he was expecting as well, as he now makes his way through Maggots, Beckett, and then finally Chap will have to come across a car in his way. I think that could potentially be his own teammate of Rens Tomasson, who keeps out the way quite nicely. It was Rens who was just in his way. There you have a lovely buffer to the cars around them. A little bit too early on the turning point. So just dabbled a little bit of the grass on the right-hand side, but it's not the end of the world. This is just a benchmark, it seems, for Toshubi, just wanting to get it on the board, relieve that pressure for the final few runs, and across the line he goes. 14th fastest, a 25.1, 3/10 off of his teammate, and 4/10 off his teammate, with a lot of work to do, and switching straight over to his teammate. The what Rens Tomasson has in store as Lucas Baster behind starts his lap. Keep a tab on both drivers as they complete their laps. Of course, Baster is coming under a little bit of traffic, and so will Tomasson. As we make it into the first sector split, he's down by 100th of a second, misses the apex ever so slightly as well through Brooklands. Not going too well in the opening part of this lap time for Tomas. And what about Baisner? What's he doing on his lap time? He did get caught by a little bit of traffic. He's down by 200ths of a second. So both marginally down on their previous best lap times. As we see Tomas now through Cobb's corner and into Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. Could potentially come under a little bit of traffic, but no, just able to keep out of the way. It's going to be one of the Red Bulls, potentially of the Rero. Through the middle sector split now we go with Tomasin. He's down by even more, half a tenth down on his previous best. What about Baisner? Well, as he makes his way through the middle parts of the lap, we can just see how aggressive he's being with the curbs. A little bit wide though, and I think that's going to cost him dearly. He's still only down by 300ths of a second. Does Tomasin come into pit lane? He does. So Tomasin's not going to find an improvement. But what about Baisner? Is there time in the final part of the lap? But no, runs wide, invalidates, and he will elect to abort as well. What about Stephen Vasso? He's up in the first sector by 700ths of a second. This will surely see him sweep to that pole position spot, that provisional pole position spot in this session. Of course, Ventauri, after their strong performance in Austria, looking to carry on that momentum, and he's up by a tenth and a half in the middle sector. Is Stephen Vasso, the Ukrainian, potentially looking to try and take a pole position? And if he can pull off an absolute lap of all laps here, it could be insurmountable come the end of this session. So for Stephen Vasso, through the final chicane, took a lot of curb through fail. Hopefully he hasn't lost too much time through that. Across the line he goes. He did lose time, but it's still a 1 minute 24.658. The Rero will have to find a second on his, a 10th on his previous best if he wants to see himself to the top. But let's now go aboard of Isaac Leet for SCI as they look to bounce back after a disappointing Austria. Tonalato just following, so we'll go back on board with Leet as he now heads through the middle sector. Through the middle sector split, then we come with Isaac Lee. He's up by a tenth and a half himself, so he could potentially now stoop to the top of the times. What about his teammates on Alato? It seems all over the road, and it is all over the road, so he will abort that lap. So we'll go back on board with Isaac Leet at this mid-stage of qualifying. Isaac Leet, can he now go to provisional pole and reclaim some form so far for Shazoo? Cedars ignites across the line he goes. No, he lost time in the final sector and just misses out. So all eyes now to the Rero, who's up in the first sector, and he's up in the middle by 700ths of a second. Could he snatch back pole position into his grasp? So as he makes his way now through Stowe and into the Vale chicane, we've seen plenty of drivers lose time on the final part of the lap, and we might just see the Rero too lose a little bit of time he just found through Club Corner. What's it gonna be? He does improve, but he invalidated the lap, I think, just as he crossed the line. It would have been a low 1 minute 24.6, enough to surge back to the top of the times. But he invalidated just as he crossed the line there, I think. So for the Rero, that is really unfortunate for him. It's Nuofo on a lap time. No, he is not. Lucas Baisner is pushing on to a lap, so he could potentially be someone we look forward to. Yes, I think it is going to be Lucas Baisner for Tomas Enge. Your championship leaders currently down in 6th and 9th. Shazoo with a driver down in 10th of Tonalato and up in 2nd for Isaac Leet. So this session could certainly now ebb and flow. And all it takes is one good lap from both cars, and you see yourself stoop to the very top. So, now out of Luffield through Woodcote, and currently needing to find 3.5 tenths per second if he wants to snatch pole position away from Stephen Vasso. Does Lucas Baisner. So through Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel, down to 6th gear. He doesn't elect to go down to 5th to get that extra rotation. Another big slide from Baisner, but he's only up by 100th of a second, really, through the middle part of the lap. He'll need a monstrous end to this one if he wants any chance of improving. Tomasin and co are behind. And Baszler just does not seem he can get that front end turned in. He has unfortunately aborted another run. Hopefully he has another set of tyres to go again. I would imagine he will. Tomas follows him in. What about Alex? Is that him next coming around the circuit? Yes, it is. Currently on a 25-1 here for Alex and for Onib as we make our way through the final corner. What's this going to be for Alex? He goes 8th fastest. A nice lap time there actually from Alex. Move himself into those top few places. To Shuby's next to the line. He's found time in the middle and he found time in the last. He goes up into 7th. For RSC, they're having quite a nice outing so far with Tomas and Shuby 4th and 7th respectively. I think Van Zelter was on a lap. He's aborted. Come into pit lane. Fabi is coming around the circuit and he has also come into the pits. So it's Odin. Odin Tux goes through the first sector split. He's down by 300ths of a second, and he's wide as well through Brooklands. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him abort this one and come into pit lane. Not able to find anything through the middle parts of the lap because it's going to need to be a quick turnaround at one of the longest pit lanes on the calendar. That's going to add to the whole strategic element of this race. We head through Chapel Corner as well. A few corrections of the car. He's only up by he's down by 300ths of a second. Is he going to elect to pull this one in, or is this going to be his final attempt? Oh, a little snap of the rear through Stowe as well. He's got to carry on with it, so this will be Odin's lap time, and this will be his session over wide through Vale. It's even more scrappier on the exit. He's fighting and overdriving the car. And he doesn't improve. He stays 13th fastest as the rest of the field now come out. Starts their final attempts. And so far it's Isaac Leet who will lead us around. With Balin Alecki's and also his teammate Tonalato following closely in tow. There's actually Balin elects to go through and he wants to be the driver that starts these final runs. Super close at the top of this field. Let's have a look at the gap between the top 10. Look at that, 0.3 of a second separate Vaso from Nofo. Nofo. And it is going to be so close as this session draws to an end. And look at that, the top 6 separated by under 0.2. Top 7 by just over 0.2 of a second. So it's going to be close for Tomas Enge. They need to pull something out the bag, especially with Ventauri and SCI having a car on the front row of the grid. But their other drivers are struggling quite badly. So for Balin, let's start the final runs of qualifying. You can just see the trainer cars on the circuit heading through, so all want to find a gap with one another. Balin Alecki's as he now makes his way into Village and up into the loop. He has, look at this, such a clear track ahead of him. Going again, DRS open as he now makes his way down into that first sector split. Is he up or is he down on that lap time? He's up by 0.04 of a second, so FER could have something to say in this one. Could they potentially see themselves into the fray for pole position? Of course, they've already got Lorero, who's very close and very, very just on the edge of trying to tiptoe to the top of the time. So for Balin Alecki's, it could be an FER front row of the grid if both cars can hook up their laps. So as we head through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel with the FER driver, Odin of course retires. He can't make it back out on the circuit for one more. Through the middle sector split, he's only up by 0.03 of a second, but if there's anything in the final part of the lap, Balin could certainly see himself go to the top. Isaac Fleet, what's he doing through the middle part of the lap? He's up at the first. Through the middle, is he up? Yes, he is by 0.04, so he's still someone to look out for. So for Balin Alecki's, through the Vale chicane. Took a lots of curb, just like we saw Vasso do on his provisional pole lap time. Here comes the Red Bull, and he just misses out. It is on the front row of the grid provisionally. What about Sonolato? He's coming to pit lane, so all eyes now to Isaac Leet. Can he snatch it away from Stephen Vasso? Up to the line comes Leet. He can! A 24.5 from Stephen Vasso, from Isaac Leet. Sees him to the top, but it's Stephen Vasso responding. Is he going to improve enough? Of course, there is time in the final lap for the Ferrari driver in the final part of the sector. And now for Stephen Vasso as he comes to the line. Van Seltzer goes fourth. Can he snatch it back? No, misses out by 1,000th of a second. What about the Rero? He's up by nearly 2/10 of a second through the middle part of the lap, but it validates into Stowe corner, and the Rero could have stole pole away at the death, but unfortunately just misses out. Scott Holmes, what can he do now as he makes his way into the final few corners of this one? Of course, him and Basler still pushing on in this session. Here comes Scott Holmes. Can he move to the front of the field? He goes 5th fastest, and Lucas Basner only 11th, with Tadel and Sonolato at the bottom of the pack. So, with one driver succeeding from each team of the top 3 in the championship, the other seeming to be struggling. It's Isaac Leet, though, for Shazoo, who fight back after disappointing results in Austria, where they saw Tomas Enge extend their championship lead. He takes pole by 1,000th of a second from Stephen Vasso. That is less than a blink of an eye. And then it's Tomasin, Alekis, Holmes, Van Selter, Lorero, who could have snatched it away until that invalidation. Gianluca Onofo, Toshubi, Hope, Basner, Alex, Tadel, Tonolato, Odin, Fabi, Hamza, Daniko, Ryan Grob, rounding out your timed runners. And then, of course, Filip Lalofsky, who unfortunately was not able to get a lap time in. But, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to have a lobby restart. We'll quickly head to a short intermission. You guys can digest what just happened in that session. And will Shazoo fight back against Tomas Enge and can Leet convert from pole? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, here to Silverstone, where we have 5.891 kilometers or 3.660 miles for you guys to be enjoying today, which make up 18 corners of magnificent racing facility. The former RAF base. Seen many changes over the years in Formula 1. There's 2 DRS zones down the Hangar and Wellington Straights, between Aintree and Brooklands, and then also between Chapel Corner and Stowe. Plenty of overtaking opportunities at pretty much everywhere on the circuit. A pass is possible. The only real place where it's not is Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel, but you can still try if you dare. The drivers have just readied up. They are now into the lobby, so let's quickly show you track sides, where we have a sunny Silverstone, but with a few clouds off into the horizons. Let's see if Isaac Leet can convert his pole positions. And we'll see if Steven Vasso or Tomas Enge could maybe climb their way through. All the drivers that struggled from the respective teams in the top three themselves back into the fight come the end of this race. So, of course, for Tomas Enge, they have a healthy lead over Shazoo, and with Scott Holmes in 5th, Basner in 11th. Decent outing for them. They, of course, still, though, have the likes of Leet and Vasso on the front row of the grid, but crucially for them, the second car for each team is behind Lucas Basner. But we head to the 5 red lights here in Silverstone. It's Leet and Vasso on the front row, and it's underway for the British Grand Prix. Isaac Leet gets a lovely start from pole position, brilliant reaction to the lights, and he sees himself keep that race lead through Farm Curve, but into Village Corner. Is Vasso potentially going to look to the inside line and get that move done? No, he just can't find the way through. Alejandro Herrero's had a horror start. He's down to 10th place at this one. He started within that top 6 as we now exit out down at the Wellington Straight for the first time. Vasso still trying to get close enough to the back of Isaac Leet. Baden Lekish now behind Rens to Masson as he tries to move himself up into that 3rd place, which he has lost to Shuby, now fighting his way with Gianluca Nofo over that 8th place. What about the other drivers further down? It's actually Ventauri, Tomas Enge and Shazoo all together down at the bottom of the pack. It's Saddle from Basner, from Tonolato for 12th, 13th and 14th. I say that, it's Alex versus Kevin Taddle for that 11th place. No move being made, though, unfortunately, for the Ferrari as he taps the back of the kick Sauber. Basler goes across the road. Luckily, he's used to that after what happened in qualifying, but unfortunately drops down to 17th. And now here comes Leonardo Tonolato to the outside of Kevin Taddle, but just can't get the move done. But for Lucas Basler, an 11th place start, he's dropped to 18th place. It is, unfortunately, dropping him down the order, and for Tomas Enge Sim, they could see a big point swing against their favour, and Shazoo and Venturi could see themselves move further forward. So for Leet, Vasso and Tomasen, they lead the way as we now head through the loop. Of course, it's going to be a medium hard race, I would presume. Let's quickly have a look at the tyre compounds that everybody is on. It's mediums for everyone except from Grob, Danico and Lorero. That potentially explains why Alejandro had a poor start to this one. He just wasn't able to get going off the line. Didn't have that superior grip that everybody else had. How many places has he dropped in this race? He has dropped down 3 from the start. So started 7th, dropped down to 10th. Daniel Hope is up to 7th place. It's a very nice start, actually, from Daniel. We make our way through the middle sector for the second time in this Grand Prix. Of course, lap 2 of 26 for Steven Vasso and everyone else around him. They're going to start to build themselves now into a rhythm. And we'll see these drivers now just save their tyres. I say that Scott Holmes is starting to hound the back of Bennett Lekish over that fourth place spot. He's not able to find a way through just yet. Was able to bring that gap down to just below a tenth of a second. Now for Scott Holmes. He needs to make sure he doesn't fall into the clutches, though, of Florian Van Zelter. I say that to the inside goes Van Zelter. He taps the back of Lekish. That sends the car snapping into the side of Scott Holmes, and he gets his way through. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that come under Stewart's review, because it has been a tap of the back and a hit to the front. But I think Van Zelter letting Scott Holmes back through, but potentially could come under a little bit of scrutiny from Daniel Hope, as around the outside goes Scott Holmes. He's able to hold on to the position as Van Zelter was trying to attack, and now Van Zelter is on the back foot, and this might allow Daniel Hope through for AZR as we make our way up into Cop's corner. They're side by side through here. Which one of the drivers will be back out? It's Van Zelter, who just had to avoid going into the side of Daniel Hope. And unfortunately for Van Zelter, what looked like it could have been a good move into Village Corner, unfortunately for him, he's ended up losing a place after trying to let Basner back through. So as we make our way up into Stowe Corner, everyone's still about 3 tenths to half a second behind one another. Let's look at that, Van Zelter. I think he tapped the grass on the outside, went deep into the corner. This now is allowed to Shuby to get all over the back of him too. Unfortunately for Florian Van Zelter, that was a lap from hell. And he is not going to watch lap 3 of 26 back here in Season 2 of Champions Esports Series. If his life depends on it. So for Tashubi, he's just gone a little bit wide through the loop, and this might now allow Noofo to get the move done. So he's in a TRT sandwich at the moment, is the RSC driver. Is this going to be the opportunity for Gianluca? No, it's not. He's just not close enough, but still following in the wheel track. And right, of course, to just behind Noofo is the first of those hard runners, Alejandro Guerrero, who dropped a few places at the start, but over the course of the next few laps, those hards will be the better tyre. I can see if that alternate strategy can help the FVR Campeonato driver push to the front of the field, eventually claim this race victory. So far, so good for Isaac Leach at the front of this pack. He's half a second clear from Stephen Vasso. The Ferrari getting closer and closer. Not be close enough as they now hit the brakes into Stowe Corner. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Ferrari driver is just saving his battery, his tyres, wanting to push on a little bit later on, just like we're seeing with everybody else around him, the likes of Tomas and Elekish and also Scott Holmes. And actually, Odin, has he gone around or come into pit lane? I think he got forced off slightly by Hamza, because he's now squabbling away with Fabi, both the IRT boys getting past the kick Sauber, but it's instantly back in front from Odin ahead of Fabi. And there goes Danico looking to the inside now of the Williams, who is unsettled a little bit offline. Daniel Hope and Van Zelter are squabbling as well. This is a bit more of a crucial battle in this race between Hope and Van Zelter. And I think the Mercedes driver just tucked to the behind the Haas. No, he has not. He sent it to the inside into Brooklands. And look at that. It was expertly done from Florian Van Zelter, and he's back up into that 6th place to try hunt down Scott Holmes once more. So for Van Zelter, after what was a horror show of a lap 2 laps ago, he's finally made amends of one of the mistakes he made. Is he going to get past Scott Holmes? He seems to have a lot of pace in that Mercedes. Of course, Passat and ResTech. He's going to be able to see himself up into the top 5 and demote the Tomas Enge sim driver, the team leading the standings, down an extra place. Scott Holmes a little bit wide through Stowe, we saw there on the off-board shot. Potentially struggling with some front-end rotation. We saw that, especially with Basner through the opening parts of qualifying. He just wasn't able to get the car rotated in. He didn't have any bite from those front tyres. And could we be saying the same from Scott Holmes? I say that. He's closed right up to the back of Baden Alekish, and is going to go for the move on Alekish as we now head into the loop. He's just had a little bit of a swapper on as they hit the brakes. Van Selter's dropped all the way back. He's squabbling away with Daniel Hope, and another little slide out of Aintree might just set the Haas driver up perfectly. But here comes Scott Holmes. He can't get close enough, but back between Hope and also Florian Van Selter, are we going to see a swap of what only just happened a lap ago? I don't think we will. Van Selter gets on the power earlier on that more narrow line. And it is going to be Daniel Hope who has to sit behind once more, but a horror show of a first sector for Van Selter as he now closes back up to Scott Holmes, who has lost quite a bit of time through Lutfield, and Van Selter runs wide. That will surely be a warning coming his way. Heading up into... So you can see Tomas just trying to break out of that slipstream as much as he possibly can. Constantly weaving from side to side as soon as the drivers in front of him cut over to his racing line. Keep that engine full as possible and giving the best engine power out down those straights and out of those slower corners like Luffield, like the loop. Brilliant opportunity later on in this race. When that pit window comes around, it'd be absolutely crucial to get track position because of the nature of this pit lane being oh so long. Quite a lot of time. Just potentially even staying out a lap longer or even coming in a lap earlier. But with DRS now open for Shazoo behind Daniel Hope, not looking like any move's going to be made this time around into Brooklands. Everybody just going to stay behind one another. And in the top 8, closest gap we do have is between Shazoo and Hope. But everybody's still around about half a second away from one another. As Noofo and Shazoo are slowly trying to make inroads on that top 7. Can't count out Loureiro either, as he's only 3 tenths behind a Mercedes. Goes even worse for Tomas Enge and Lucas Basner. The Aston Martin driver, after being forced off a little bit earlier on in reaction to the incident, lost a second. He actually lost his front wing end plate in that one. So for Basner and Tomas Enge, unless there is a safety car, I think they can rule their race goodbye. And that's one of their cars down. So for Shazoo and Ventauri, they have a brilliant opportunity to capitalise here, with them both still having 2 cars in the running. As we saw Basler just letting Nalovsky through. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that Aston Martin into the pit lane shortly. Get a front wing replacement. As actually Scott Holmes is all over back of Alekish once again. He's going to look to dive it to the inside into the loop. No, learnt his lesson from last time. He's actually going to go for the power out of the loop. Get the better run. He took a wider swinging line. Get the power down earlier. Tomasin, of course, he's not looking to defend. He's just trying to keep his engine nice and cool. But Holmes down the straight. Not close enough. And Baden Alekish is able to stay in front. And the Red Bull man lives to see another day in 4th place. For Scott Holmes, he's now coming under all sorts of pressure from Florian Van Selter. You just saw it there. He didn't really have too much front end grip behind Alekish through that middle part of the lap. And talking about Alekish, he's nearly out of a second from Renz Tomas, and so he potentially could lose the DRS train from the top 3. But we actually see Van Selter and also Isaac Leet, Alekish all come into pit lane. Lap 8 of 26. And we see a lot of the front runners into the pits. Vasso's in. Nalovsky has unfortunately come into pits and picked up a 10-second time penalty. He was at the back of the field. Basner stays out. Could actually work into Tomas Engesim's favour if Basner stays out and is able to hold up the likes of Leet, Vasso and co. Potentially see him move further forward, as actually Alejandro Loureiro has been able to get past Gianluca Nofo straight out of the loop. And he's now up into 5th place. On that alternate strategy, got to be looking to go longer, probably to around lap 13 to 14 on until the very end. But Herrero, he is going to be on a charge at the moment. He needs to save those tyres and then push on. Once he gets past all of these medium runners, once they all come into pit lane, exactly the plan he'll try and look at stake. So the gap between Tomas and Isaac Leet, 25 seconds. Look how quickly that did come down. It's 24.9. Actually, it seems that Tomas is slowly gaining time, so potentially a little bit quicker in a straight line is the V-Carb. He dives into pit lane this time around and is doing the overcut. Oh, what I was going to say is doing the overcut. Help the RSC driver. We were on board with him coming into pit lane. He just went a little bit too hot. The same with Noofo as well. And unfortunately for Jens Tomassen, what could have been a potential strategy wonder if he's able to pull off this overcut has now unfortunately gone the high side, the wayside. 10-second time penalty. Serve that once he crosses the line, but I think he will actually come out in front of Isaac Leet in this one. So staying out a couple laps longer might be your friend in this race. As we head through the first corner of Leet, where is Tomassen? He's there. Has he got the jump on Steven Vasso? That is the big question. He has. He has got the jump on Steven Vasso. So if he didn't, unfortunately, speed into the pit lane, we're talking about Tomassen being a net P2. The heartbreak there for RSC, potentially pick up their first win of the season. And it's unfortunately been ripped out of their hands by Tomassen, picking up that 10-second time penalty. And it must have been by the barest of margins, because it was oh so close between the V-Carb. Slowing down by enough. You heard him lock the car up, just try and get it stopped. He proper slammed on the anchors. A couple meters too late on the brakes. Able to reduce that speed in time. Is Scott Holmes going to come into pit lane this time around, as he stayed out to use as much of the speed as he possibly can, as Kevin Taddle and Leonardo Tonolato now squabble as Taddle comes into pit lane. Tonolato stays out even longer, as we now see Scott Holmes into pit lane. Where does he come out in relation to that fight we just saw, as Odin now picks up a 10-second time penalty? I think Alejandro set the fastest lap. He did. He's been unleashed. See what Alejandro can do. Actually, Lucas Baisner might help his teammate out here, because he's now got Isaac Leet all behind him. He's made it through his leak. That could be crucial, but have they lost enough time to the Aston Martin where he comes out in front? No, they have not. They absolutely clear the Thomas Enge driver as Baisner goes off the road. I think Vasso sent that one to the inside. He's gone all the way off the track, and he's off once again. And he's going to just let everybody by. And he's going to, of course, let his teammates Scott Holmes through. He's actually dropped behind Florian Fanstelter with that undercut by quite some margin. 1.9 seconds is that gap between Florian Fanstelter and Scott Holmes. First, Herrero is unleashed. Let's have a look at that gap currently between Herrero and Isaac Leet. It's 20.2 seconds, and I don't think I'll see that rising. If he's able to keep it that way, when he moves up to the mediums, certainly could. They'll fly up the order and be really within a fighting chance here, as Tubi now comes to the pit lane. Does Tonolato follow him in? No, stays out even longer. So Tonolato trying to get that tyre deficit to carve his way up through the pack a little bit later on. And for Fabi, he's into the pit lane. Is Bane at the Lekish close enough to Steven Vasso? No, he's not. Fanstelter, of course, still following in Cohen, with these guys all bunching up under braking, so allowing Scott Holmes to really catch up to these drivers, as Fanstelter and Holmes now see themselves potentially coming under a little bit of fire. Sorry, the Lekish and Fanstelter can find themselves coming under a little bit of pressure. Scott Holmes runs in 10th place currently. When everyone comes into pit lane, being a net P6, and Fanstelter might just see himself drop behind the Aston Martin a couple of laps. at the railroad at the front of the field, making his way out of Chapel Corner. Let's have a look at that gap now. Over the course of the last lap, Isaac Lee's only been able to find a few tenths of a second. Of course, the more that the railroad can keep things like this, really help into hands. Goes onto those mediums because it'll be so much quicker at the end stage of this Grand Prix. Another final corner. The railroad to push on. Of course, these guys still, of the Isaac Lee, Rens Tomasen, and Bainat Alekish, still have to potentially come over the back of both the ET8 cars. They'll have to try and climb through those drivers. I don't think they'll get close enough, though. It's 12.3. Currently, there's a yellow flag. That's for Lucas Baisner, who's picked up a left front puncture. Only 11 laps on those mediums, so that's a warning sign to everybody else. Excuse me. On the medium compound, he picks up 10 seconds. Wouldn't be surprised if this is a retirement here from Lucas Baisner, as Florian Van Selter is actually going for the move here on Bainat Alekish. There's some contact on the exit of the corner. This slows their momentum. Can Scott Holmes potentially capitalise and move himself up into the top 9? No, he cannot. And Van Selter, low out of entry, was able to move himself up into that top 8. It will be, of course, a 4th place by the time the drivers in front of him come into pit lane. Tonelato is still going strong on those mediums. He's getting that tyre deficit quite nicely, but he's surely got to come in this lap after what we just saw from Baisner getting a puncture. Danico all over the back of him as well. Really got to be careful through the next couple of corners. Is he going to dart into pit lane? Yes, he is, but he's miles off the back of the pack. Don't know what this strategy is from SCI. They trust it. They believe in it. See what they are going to be capable of, as Tomasen got within a 10th of Isaac Lee. Was not close enough for the move. Scott Holmes is actually close enough for a move, though, as he's just gone around the outside of Bainat Alekish. He must have absolutely swooped around the outside and been super brave on the brakes. And that's a fantastic move from Holmes to move himself up into 5th. Well, current net P5 in this race. P8 currently, but a net 5th. Going to be really what Thomas Enge needs, as Alekish is now under pressure from Daniel Hope and Gianluca Nofo, and that's Alekish round. And after what has been a fantastic race so far from Bainat Alekish, he's into the wall on the exit of the loop. He will not want to watch that one back. He's picked up damage as well. And for F3R, what it looked like a star-studded race, as soon as he switched over to those hards, he has just not had any pace at all. Bainat Alekish, he's our second casualty of this race, as Fabi and Philippe Navoloski are actually battling quite nicely here over 16th place. And it is Philippe comes out on top, or is it? Because Fabi will want to try and swoop around the outside here. Through Stowe, there's the damage on the Haas car. And through goes Fabi up to 16th. Well, for Bainat Alekish, that's a bit of a rookie error. It's very rare you see drivers of this caliber, as Isaac Lee has actually been overtaken by Rens Tomasen. Did not see that. That might have been while we were looking at Bainat Alekish that Rens Tomasen got that move done. But that's a big, big switch in this race. As look at that, Tomasen has nearly broke the DRS, and it could have been a potential race victory here for Rens Tomasen if he was able to keep it out of that 10-second time penalty, if he was able to get the car down, slowed down enough into the pit lane. And unfortunately for him, he does have that 10 seconds, as Alekish is our first proper casualty of the race. He retires in the pit lane. For Rens Tomasen, it shows he had a lot of pace in that car. We've said it before. I did say a little bit earlier on that he has a lot of pace in this race. And unfortunately, with that penalty, he's not going to be able to convert what could surely have been a certain race victory into, of course, just trying to hang on to some crucial points, which even then, do, he'll fall all the way down to around about 13th place. Danico now into pit lane. First of the hard runners to come in. Of course, only 3 of the hard runners in this race. It was the Raro, Grob, and Co. Well, Danny has now come in pits. Gone to a set of the mediums to do a 10-lap dash. Well, 11-lap dash on them, so he could be a little bit on the conservative side come the end of this race. Raro, of course, will want to way up through the field too. He's got 17 seconds between him and Tomas, and right about 18 between himself and Isaac Leeton. By the time he comes out of the pit lane, he probably will be around about where Kevin Taddle is on the road. Of course, a little bit further ahead of the Raro. Might actually just come out in front of Leonardo Tonelato in this one. We'll check the gap to leader. Double check where you come out. Yeah, just behind Odin, I think, and in front of Leonardo Tonelato. Going to be where Alejandro Lerrero comes out in this race. But we've now hit that lull stage of this Grand Prix. The stage where everything dies down, everything goes a little bit quiet. Start to get those moves, those attacks a little bit later on as Lerrero is into pit lane. A crucial moment in this Grand Prix on this alternate strategy. Where is he going to come out? Is he going to come out in that gap? Just going to be behind the Kick Sauber. If so, that is absolutely crucial. He's that one step closer. Those cars in front of him. He's going to do 9 laps on those tyres. As you can see in the background there, the leaders make their way through. And is he essentially jump Odin Tux here? Make our way up the hill. No, Odin comes out ahead, but by how much? It's not by much at all, and that could be absolutely crucial as we see a move from Nuofa. We also see a move from Scott Holmes on Van Selter. They're side by side now as we make our way out of Aintree. DRS is open for the pair of them as we make our way down into Brooklyn's corner. They've lost the DRS to Vasso in front, but Van Selter is able to hold on to the position as Tashubi is looking to push on against the Nuofa. And he's not able to get that move done either as Alejandro Lerrero is within DRS range of Odin Tux, and he needs to get past these drivers quickly because he needs to make those medium tyres count while he has that tyre pace deficit. To see himself move further up the order, he'll probably be aiming for at least a top 5 in this one, knowing he has so much superior grip at this stage. He's got a 6-lap difference to some. Most cars, it's a 7-lap difference. And to the likes of Isaac Leeton, Stephen Vasso, it's 8 laps, that difference. So you could just tell by the way he took so much momentum through Chapel compared to Odin in front. He's just got so much pace. He's going to look to the outside line, potentially blocked in ever so slightly by Hamza. Some slight contact made, and Odin sent into a half spin. There's not much that Lerrero could have done there. He left the Kick Sauber room, and for Alejandro Lerrero, next on his list will be Hamza. Will stay on board with the Red Bull driver as he now gets close. It might be a move into the loop here as Hamza has lost DRS to Kevin Taddle. He's going to have to use a bit more energy out of those tyres to catch up to the pack than probably what he would have liked. But he's surely going to get past Hamza down this next straight. What about Scott Holmes versus Florian Van Selter? Is he going to get close enough with the DRS now? Of course, Van Selter doesn't have it. Holmes does. He looks to the inside line. As easy as you like, gets the move done. Up into 4th place, whereas Lerrero, he moves up into 11th. Next week, this will be Kevin Taddle as Nuofo and Tashubi now go side by side through Luffield, and Nuofo still hangs on to that 7th place. I think the V-car might be trying to fight back up into Cobb's corner. He's getting closer, closer, and closer, and he is going to look for it into Cobb's. He's to the inside. Is the V-car just not making contact? They did wheel bang ever so slightly on the exit, but it wasn't anything too major. And for Gianluca Nofo, he's able to hold on to that 7th place. It's Tashubi just facing a rolling roadblock at the moment in the Mercedes in front of him. Brilliant defense so far from the Wofo. I think he might just be able to hold on to Stowe as well. Yes, he will, as Alejandro Lerrero has already got past Kevin Taddle. Baisner picks up 3 seconds of time penalties, but he's down at the back of the field, and unfortunately for him, the race has gone from bad to worse. When it rains, it certainly does pour for Lucas Baisner. Look at that, 36 seconds off the back of the pack. He's heading through Luffield. The driver is behind Philippe Naloshki. Is heading through Stowe Corner, and here comes the Lerrero into Abbey Corner. He is flying as he sets the fastest lap of this Grand Prix. Yellow flag in sector 3. that was for. Potentially for Naloshki. Comes in to retire. He's our second driver we've lost in this race, and now we're going to see Lorero. Is he going to be able to get this move done onto Shubi? He's going to look for it. He's going to be so much better on the brakes, and he is up into 8th place. Next on these lists is Nwofo, who doesn't have DRS to Daniel Hope in front. Nearly taps the back of the Mercedes. He can get the run though out of Luffield Drive, pull off what Shubi couldn't do into Copse Corner, but no, actually loses a bit of time down that straight to try and get the exit though out of Chapel Corner. So as we exit out of Chapel, and now with the DRS comes Lorero. Now up into 7th place, as easy as you like. Excuse me for the Red Bull man, and he's only been on those tyres for nearly 3 laps at this point. He's up to 7th place after dropping all the way down to 13th. This DRS train will lead him all the way to the very top. Of course, he only needs to climb to 2nd in this race because Tomas has that 10 seconds. So it really does make it a little bit easier for him because he has to overtake 1 car less. Already got within the DRS of Daniel Hope. We'll have a look at this. I don't think it'll be close enough for the move, but a little bit further back. Nwofo under pressure from Tashubi, who's got that DRS, and it's going to be the V-Carb who just streaks ahead into the braking zone. Nwofo forced wide, and Tashubi takes 8th place away. That now puts Nwofo into the clutches of Alex behind him, who can potentially get this move done. As for Lorero, he's all over the back of Daniel Hope. Of course, for AZR, it'll be a brilliant result for them, a 6th or 7th place finish. And it's Lorero going to make his way through. Alex looked for the move there into Maggots on Nwofo. That would have been a spectacular move from the Kick Sauber if he was able to pull that one off. But here comes Lorero on Hope, gets the launch out of Chapel. Another driver ticked off the list, as when we cross the line, we'll have 6 laps to go here in Silverstone. And he could actually get Florian Van Selter into the Vale chicane. He's looking for it. He's going to go for it. Van Selter goes deep. Now if he can get the run up the corner, Lorero might be able to just see himself through into Abbey like we saw him do on Alex Oceans only a few laps ago. And it's not going to be done for Lorero, but he's surely going to be squaring it up into the village corner. He tries it. He forces Van Selter to go deep once more. The superior traction will surely help him on the outside. He'll hang it around the outside. There's some wheel banging, and he's forced onto the grass there by Van Selter. That's the 2nd time in this race Van Selter has forced somebody off onto the Astro turf. I do not think Lorero will be too happy with that one as Vasso goes wide, potentially now allowing Scott Holmes to have an attack up into Copse Corner. Lorero could be looking for that launch. Once again, just like we saw again on Daniel Hope, out of Chapel. Then get up into that top 5. Potentially get this move done. Look at Holmes. He's all over the back of Stephen Vasso. Looking to try and get a 2nd place in this one and recover some really good points here for Tomas Enge Sim. The RS Open for all of them. Is Alejandro close enough? He's not. He's just too far back against Van Selter. Are those tyres starting to fade against those hards already? Or is it too little, too late? He's going to look to the inside, into the Vale chicane. That was bold. It was brave. And is it going to be beautiful as he's forced a little bit wide on the exit of not only Vale, but Club as well. And Van Selter just swings back in front. But are we going to see a repeat of what we saw on that previous tour of this circuit? A lunge into Village. Yes, we are. Van Selter went back to the outside. He overcooks it. He nearly goes off the road. Lorero fights back. And Van Selter, does he force him wide again? There's a little bit of contact. But this time around, Lorero gets the move done. He'll have the DRS down at the Wellington Straight. And he's up into 5th place in this Grand Prix. And he's now looking to close in on Scott Holmes in front. Needs to get these moves done quickly as Holmes is being held up by Stephen Vasso. Tomas Enge Sim, if they lose the place here to Alejandro and they can't get past the Ferrari, could be very much not what they needed in their fight against Shazoo Cedars Igniters. That gap, 27 points. So something's happened to Daniel Hope. What has happened to the Haas driver is he's falling down the order. I think he's off the road. He is off the road. What has happened to Daniel? Has he potentially dropped it out of the corner? Well, mid-corner, sorry, through Cops. Or has he got a puncture? I don't think he does. I think he might have dropped it into the wall. And for Daniel Hope, what was going to be such a good race for AZR has unfortunately got away from him in an unfortunate spin. I don't know if there was contact. We were looking at Holmes behind Vaso. And unfortunately for Daniel Hope, the hope of a good result has gone down the drain. So as for the Railroads, we start 4 laps to go in this Grand Prix. Are we going to see him potentially make his way through as Holmes and Vaso start to get into it a little bit more? Look at Holmes all over the back of Stephen Vaso. Of course, 4 to go, not long left in this Grand Prix. Unfortunately for both AZR cars, they are out of the race. And look at Scott Holmes. He is preying all over the back of Stephen Vaso like a hawk. Just doesn't have the, it's just a rotation through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. It costs him dearly, and it might just cost him too dearly, as here comes Alejandro Loureiro. Is he going to be able to get the move done? No, he's just not close enough, but we saw what he did to Van Zelter at this part of the circuit not too long ago. He used that battery where everyone else is saving. He's not going to be able to get it done as Holmes tried to attack to defend on Stephen Vaso, and that might have just gave Alejandro the opportunity. But now, get into that slipstream. Go for the move into the finish corner. He's late on the brakes. It's Loureiro. He's able to keep it out the side of the Aston Martin. A very slight wall banging, but he's going to go for the up and under. But it's brilliantly defended from Scott Holmes. That is expertly done. And now with the DRS open, Scott Holmes is going to be able to live in this 4th place again with 3 laps to go. But that was brilliantly placed by Scott Holmes, using all that experience in these top flight races to just hold off fast charging medium runner. He himself potentially now hold on to that 4th place, but he has dropped off the back of Stephen Vaso, which not only might cost him, but also Loureiro as well. Cross line will be 2 laps to go. Of course, Isaac Lee is happy where he is. He's completely happy where he is at the moment with Tomas having that penalty. He doesn't have to make the move at this stage. As actually something might have just happened to Odin, or has he just been overtaken? He's been overtaken while Tomalato's made a move on Hamza there. He's actually going to move up into the top 10 for Shazoo. Both drivers going to be in the top 10. Same for Ventauri as well. Kevin Taddle in 9th. Be a very nice evening for them when it comes to results and points gained on Tomas Enge Sim. Loureiro once again close to Scott Holmes and looking for the move. Is he going to just hold this one round the outside? Yes, he is. He went for the up and under last round. It didn't work. He's adapted. He's attacked. He went for a new strategy. But is it still not going to work? I don't think it will unless he's super brave on the brakes. Round the outside. He looks to the inside into Brooklyn's. That was millimetres away from a collision between the pair. And now for Loureiro, as they hold through Lutfield Corner and exit through Woodcote. They're still side by side as we head up into Cops Corner, up the small elevation. He's going to get a little slipstream off Stephen Vaso, but he's just not close enough. Once again is Alejandro Loureiro, and Holmes still holds on as we're on the penultimate tour of this Grand Prix. 1.5 laps to go. And for Loureiro, he's come across a driver that is a master of defence in this Grand Prix. He's not been able to be overtaken so far, and that is Scott Holmes, who has unfortunately stopped the charge of Alejandro Barrero. As Tonelato now gets past Noofo. Could he potentially close up to Kevin Taddle and get that move done with 1 to go as we start the final lap of this Grand Prix with Rens Tomasen leading the way. But unfortunately for Rens, he sees himself with that 10-second time penalty as Shubi gets past following Ventauri, who goes all the way off the road. And Florian Ventauri, we saw it in the background. Has he picked up a puncture? He has. He has picked up a rear puncture. Unfortunate for the Mercedes. He just got overtaken by Shubi and turning into the corner. We see him backwards heading to the gravel. And this spells disaster for those drivers who are on 17-lap-old tyres. The likes of Leet, Vasso, and also, no, it's only Leeds and Vasso who are on those 17-lap-old tyres, but they have conserved a lot more than Ventauri, so I think they're going to be okay when it comes to the end of this one. With not long left to go in this final lap, I don't think we're going to see any more moves unless Tonelato can get really close to the back of Taddle over the course of these next couple of corners. I just don't think it'll be enough. There's a yellow flag in the second sector. That's for Ventauri and a big snap for Tonelato. That ruins it for him. It's going to be Rens Tomasen who wins this on the road. He shows he had the pace, and an unfortunate 10-second time penalty has brutally stripped away a first win for RSC as well. But they are certainly contenders in the future. But for Shazoo, when they lost points in Austria, they have fought back. They have come back swinging. And it's Isaac Leet who converts pole position into a race victory. Then it's Steven Vasso in second. Holmes recovering still some very good points for Tomas Enge Sim in this one. But for Isaac Leet and Shazoo, they are in this for the long run. They will get down and dirty. They will get into the nitty-gritty arts of battle. And they reign supreme here in Silverstone. And Shazoo Cedars Igniters take the win here in Austria. And they slash that gap down to Tomas Enge Sim as well, with Tonelato scoring 8th place. And for Ventauri Esports, the 2nd and the 7th certainly helped them as well in their battle with Tomas Enge. I'm not sure how the standings will look now, but for Shazoo, they've brought it right back within playing favours. We still wait for Baesner and for Ventauri to finish this race. Ventauri wanted to get this one off the line, over the line. Wrong tyre, but still reminisces of Hamilton in 2020. But unfortunately for Ventauri, this one has not gone the way of coming across the line with a race victory. And we wait for Ventauri to come across the line. And there we go. That is the race, ladies and gentlemen. And for Shazoo Cedars Igniters, some very, very crucial points. Title fight. So your order was as follows. It was Isaac Leet who won the Grand Prix with Vasso in 2nd, Scott Holmes 3rd, Barrero 4th, Shubi in 5th. It's still a good amount of points for RSC as Tomasen was still able to hold on to a top 10 result. It's Alex in 6th, a brilliant result there for Onib actually. Kevin Taddle 7th, 8th for Tonelato, 9th for Hamza. And rounding out the top 10 is Rens Tomasen, who won on the road, well, unfortunately for him, that 10-second time penalty put pay to what would have been a brilliant result for RSC. Danny Cohen 11th, Farby in 12th, Ryan Grob 13th, the Lofo dropped down to 14th, Odin in 15th, Baesner and Florian Ventauri rounds out your field. And then non-finishers for the Grand Prix, both AZR boys of Daniel Hope and Filip Avaloshki. First retirement after what was a good start to the race. Valen Alekish, fortunately, saw himself spin up in the loop. That, ladies and gentlemen, bring to the end a fantastic night of racing. That was certainly A spectacular race. Shazoo fight back against Tomas Enge Sim. This championship keeps ebbing and flowing. It keeps tossing and turning each round. Either championship or each different stages will one at one point in the season finally find that form to straight clear. It keeps at this close tossing and turning battle all the way through. Talking about the rest of this season, let's have a look at the calendar where we've got, of course, Baku next week. That is certainly going to be an eventful race. We could see plenty of safety cars through there. Could see some fireworks in the championship fight. Then we head to Mexico City to round off January. Then we have a break week, which will see us off for the first week of February before we're back for round 10 last week. So actually round 9 because to Canada thanks to track limits. Yes, and it's round 10 of Vegas. Brazil will be around 10, and then to round off the season, Saudi Arabia on the 24th of February. You do not want to miss that one. Be a very, very eventful Grand Prix in Saudi to end this one, and hopefully that title fight alive all the way to the end. It will be me on comms on that one. It's me for the rest of the season until Brazil, where you'll have Alex back in the commentary box. But it certainly will be a very eventful end to the season. So make sure you guys tune in. You guys tag along with it. If you want to get updated on anything like Stewards reviews or when the next races are, make sure you follow Champions on Twitter at SF1. But it is certainly going to a spectacular season. You do not want to miss it. Going to be down to the wire, and we shall see you next time out in Baku. We're going to see who can master the old streets, who will come out on top there. But for now, that is going to be all. So thank you all very much for watching. Thank you, ABS Esports. Thank you to everyone at Champions Esports Series, the drivers, the teams, the admins, and also Driveline Media as well for putting all together, being able to bring this production to you. So thank you all very much for watching. We shall see you next time out, 7 PM UK time, 8 PM Central European time. See you in Baku. Thank you all very much for watching. I've been Max Ring. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you and